Welcome to our weekly bake session. Well, actually, this is an early bake session because it's Friday today. Good Friday to be specific. And we've neglected to get some hot cross buns. So we're going to make some. Okay, so we're going to start off with our dried fruit. I've got about, 180 grams of mixed dried fruit. We just have raisins, you can have whatever you like. Okay, and what I'm going to add to that, just to spice it up a little bit as it were, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of Kahlua or coffee liqueur. Okay, 1, 2. Right, now I've done that straight away, so I just want that to soak, because that will get the fruit soaking that up. We'll put that to one side. And then the other thing we want to start with is we want 240 mils of milk, which I'm going to put into a bowl. And then I'm going to add to that some butter. I've got there, how much butter? I've got 85 grams of butter. Okay, that's going into the, splash it everywhere. That's going into the milk. And that is now going to go in the microwave and be warmed. Now we don't want it too hot because this is going to go in with the mixture that's got the yeast in it. Okay, so about 110 Fahrenheit. Okay, so I'm going to get that going and then I'll come back and we'll go through the rest of the steps and I'll tell you what else you need. Right, so that's warmed up, and what we're going to now do is we're now going to add to that a tablespoon of vanilla essence. Okay, and then we're just going to put that to one side until we're ready to add it. Okay, butter's not quite melted, but the milk's nice and warm now, so we don't want it too hot. And the other thing I did, I actually put that into the microwave, not with the spoon in it, not a good idea. I put that in the microwave for about 10 seconds just to warm it up gently. And the other thing we need to do is keep obviously mixing it, because we don't just want the bottom layer soaking up the Kahlua. So next thing is we've got some flour, ordinary plain flour, 440 grams. And then I'm going to add to that a teaspoon of salt, a packet of yeast. Okay, I took out the packet because I wanted to check how much there was, but one packet, you know, one of your normal easy cook yeast is sufficient. And then we've got going into there a teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground allspice, and a quarter of a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, preferably freshly ground. Okay, and then we've got 50 grams of caster sugar. You could use granulate if you want, we're using caster, and 50 grams of light brown soft sugar. So we're now just going to mix all of that together. Okay, get it all nicely mixed in, and then we'll start adding the other ingredients. So I've given them a bit of a mix around, make a little well in the middle, and now this is where I'm going to add that melted butter and warm milk along with vanilla extract. Now you can put this in the mixer if you wish. Okay, do it on a low speed, and what we want to do now is just get this all nicely combined together. Now this is it's going to take quite a long time to make these, because the nature of the mix and everything, and with the yeast, it could take up to 2 hours to do the rising. This is going to make around about 14 to 15 hot cross buns, assuming that each one's about 70 grams each. Okay, so I'm just going to get this all combined. Okay, the next thing you're going to need is an egg, lightly beaten. okay, which we will be adding to that shortly, and that's when you might prefer at that point to switch over to your mixer, okay, if you're not using one. And we'll also be putting in that dried fruit. That's the egg lightly beaten, add that into there, and now we just mix that in, okay. So I'm going to do it with my spoon, so it's just going to take a little bit longer, okay. And then when we've more or less got it all mixed in, we'll be adding the fruit. Now we need to drain the fruit, okay. We don't want to put all of that liquid in there, because that will just make our dough too wet, okay. So I'm just going to make sure that egg is all mixed in. So now we're just going to sticky fingers. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to sprinkle the dried fruit into the mixture. Like I say, we don't want the liquid going in, okay, so that's why I'm not just tipping it out, and I don't want to throw away the liquid, okay. So I'm going to get them added in, and then we're going to mix it all together. So it's quite a wet dough this, so I'm going to put some flour out, and what we're going to do now is knead it for about 5 minutes, and we're going to have to add a little bit more flour until we want it sort of tacky, as it were, okay, tacky but not sticky. So we need to keep on adding our flour. And like I say, initially we're going to need to add a fair bit to this. We're going to keep adding flour until it's nice and smooth and tacky to the touch, but it don't stick to our fingers like it does at the moment. Okay, so you can add as much as you need until you've got that consistency, if you like. Okay, so I'm just now going to get this kneaded, and like I say, about 5 minutes. So there you have it, kneaded together. Took quite a bit of flour just to stop that being too sticky. I've put it into a fresh bowl, and we're now just going to cover that, and we want it to double in size, and it will double in size, but it could take up 2 hours. Okay, so we're just going to leave it now, and we'll come back when it's doubled in size. So our dough's risen, okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to divide it up, okay. You could, like I say, weigh this out if you wanted, okay, and be about 70 grams per bun, if you like, okay. So I'm just going to chop this roughly, so I'm just going to cut these up into about 14 portions, and then I'll show you how we form the bun. So I've actually divided this up into 16 because it's just easier cutting halves and halves and halves. So what we do is we basically pull in the edges, pinch them into the middle, okay, so that we get a nice smooth top of the bun. Now you're going to need to have obviously a baking tray. I've got it lined with silicone mats, but paper or whatever. Okay, now you've got to allow for these to rise, and they will therefore spread out. Okay, so you want to have a good couple of inches around each one. Okay, so I've got several trays here. Now our next stage, once we form these, is we're just going to then cover them, okay, and we're going to let them rise, and again this could take up 2 hours. Now that last one was just under an hour, okay, to get them, okay. You could, if you want, put them closer together, but then you'll have like a big thing that you'll need to, you know, break them apart. But we're just going to keep it separate, okay. So I'm just going to finish rolling them, put them on the trays, cover them, and then like I say, we're going to leave them and they should double in size. Now we're not quite ready yet for these, they're still rising, but we're getting close. So I've put the oven on, and that wants to be about 190, okay, Celsius, 370, I think it is 377.5 Fahrenheit. But what we're going to do is just prepare a couple of other things ready for when these are ready for, you know, they've risen and they're ready to go in the oven. So what I've got there is 40 grams of flour, and I've got 60 mils of water, and we're going to make a flour paste, and that's going to make our crosses on top of our buns. So I'm just going to add that water into there and mix it together. Now it wants to be quite a thick enough paste that we can pipe it. Okay, we don't want it obviously pouring out everywhere. So if it turns out that it's just too wet, we just add more flour, and if it's too dry, we add more water. Okay, and then just get a piping bag, and when we're ready, having filled it, we just snip the end off, and we'll pipe the crosses on it. Okay, we'll worry about how we do that when we get that far. All right, so the oven needs to be on. We make up our flour paste, but before we actually do that piping, we're going to need an egg wash. Okay, so what we want is 1 egg, which we're going to beat with about, well, if you want to be really posh, you can have a tablespoon of cream. But given how much cream you get in a pot, a bit of a waste of the cream unless you use it for anything else. So you can, if you prefer, like I'm going to, just add a tablespoon of milk. Do it on the cheap. We could do water, it's even cheaper. So there's some flour paste ready to go in our piping bag. Next thing we're going to do is make up this dripping milk in there, this egg wash. So I've got about a tablespoon of milk and an egg. I'm just going to whisk this lightly together, and then we're just going to brush this over the top of each of the buns. Okay, now we're then going to do the cross, and then we're going to bake them. After we bake them, we're going to do a glaze on it. So I've got some apricot jam there. I wasn't that keen on apricot. I was going to use something else, but I said, oh, I love apricot. I'll get my apricot jam. So it's up to you, but we're going to give them glaze at the end. But that's only after they come out of the oven. So it's just simply a matter now of using this egg wash all over the bun. Okay, and then we'll pipe the crosses. Right, so they've all had an egg wash on. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to pipe a line, and it's easier if you do it all in one direction first. Okay, and then rotate the tray round to do the one going across. Okay, so oops. So I'm just going to obviously pipe the cross onto all of them, and then they're ready to go in that preheated oven. Okay, and they bake for about 25 minutes. Okay. Right, so like I said to you, we're going to do like an apricot and vanilla glaze on the buns. So obviously they're still cooking. I'm doing in batches of one tray at a time. So what we want is about a tablespoon of apricot jam, a little bit more than that, but it won't hurt. Okay, and obviously we don't want any bits in it because it's a glaze. So I'm putting in a little sieve, and then we want about a tablespoon of hot water. Okay, so I'm just going to pour that onto there, and then just sieve that through. Let's move that out of the way so you can see what's going on. So we're just going to sieve the jam through. Okay, get out all the bits, and once that's sieved, we're then going to add 3 tablespoons of vanilla extract. Okay, and then that will be ready to wash the buns with when they come out of the oven. Okay, so just going to get that through the sieve, and then we'll wait for our first buns to be ready. Okay, so the first batch is out. Okay, so we just take some of this jam glaze and we just brush it over the buns whilst they're still nice and warm. Okay. And that, I'm not tasting them yet because they're bloody hot. Alright, and that is your Easter hot cross buns. So, we'll be enjoying one of these later. Nice and warm, with some nice butter inside. Okay, and then tomorrow we'll be toasting them with some nice butter melting all over them. Whoops, slippery little butters, keep flying about. So, there you go. Can you hear her in the background? So, that is our hot cross buns.